Okay, it's 8 p.m. and we're in Joinville, Santa Catarina. Today is May 13th, 2026. Today we're going to talk about our live stream today is titled EEG of selves. That whole bunch of selves that we have of selves, right? So an EEG of these selves, how could we look at it? How could we measure what this measurement would indicate to us? Brazil has biodiversity, plenty of water, energy, and so much more. But even so, we experience levels of social suffering, violence, anxiety, insecurity, and a feeling of abandonment in Brazil. Look, we're talking about mistakes, and we're talking about this violence in Brazil. Every day, higher numbers of femicides appear. Depression, school dropout. So there's pressure. Something bad is happening. What does the state do? It starts to react and imposes more rules, more punishment, a control system, rule after rule. In reality, what's happening is that the state is addressing the effects, not the causes. When you address the effect, you don't solve the root cause. This is fundamental. You know this. How to address the root causes. If you look in a room of a house and there's a water leak, you can go there and dry it, wipe it with a cloth, and keep drying it. There's no point in having strict rules and laws when the cause isn't being addressed. And the real cause of this insecurity, robberies, and assaults in Brazil is that since its discovery, Brazil has been a place of iconic imagery. It's a rich person's thing. The rich control the norms, the laws, the rules. They control the presidents, the representatives. You can see this in the representatives when you look at the representatives or candidates, new candidates for election. You'll see they're involved with the bank, with the master, with corruption all the time. The super rich control the country in some way. Brazil is a rich person's thing. Can it be changed? Yes, but we have to know the causes. E.g., Deus will try to show the cause. But I'm going to show this cause with personal examples, with your example, with my example. Don't look outward and accuse here. No, our natural example, I'll start with a very clear, very simple example that I've already told you several times, which is there was a time when I took Santo Daime and ayahuasca, and I had a vision, a very cool vision. I'll summarize it because I've already told you about it before. I had a vision that I was a whole. The elements were a whole, and suddenly I consolidated into a seed, and the seed began to sprout. And even then I was the whole, but when the seed began to sprout, I was the seed. Sprouting, I was the little root of the seed. I was the seed itself. I was the little leaves coming out. And suddenly the little leaves began to bloom. The stem grew more leaves, and more leaves. And suddenly a flower appeared. When the flower appeared, I found it very beautiful, and I realized I was, or wanted to be, the flower. And I realized this was a flower, and the flower was beautiful and remained beautiful. It's yellow, almost like a sunflower. And yellow wasn't sunflower, but that kind, that beautiful yellow thing, that beautiful flower. And I was somewhat moved by the beauty and subtlety of the flower. I was the flower. Look at that. Before I was a whole that became a seed, the seed that sprouted, and now I realized I was a flower. And upon realizing I was a flower, I tried to hold on to this flower, and this flower developed. And from suddenly this flower began to show signs that it was going to wither, that it was going to end. I pushed, I strained, I was the flower, I couldn't die, I couldn't cease to be. And in this refusal to cease to be, I held on to this flower, which identified itself as just the flower. And I held on and held on. When I couldn't take it anymore because I couldn't hold on to that flower any longer, I realized that's what it was. that thing, that flower, that beautiful thing for me, that thing full of meaning for me. When I couldn't hold on anymore, I looked at the body and saw the roots were withering, the stem was withering, the plant was dying because I only wanted to be the flower. I let go, I let the flower die, and it died, and the plant took another risk, the roots deepened, it blossomed more and appeared. Hundreds of flowers on the plant grew and many more flowers appeared. Okay, what am I trying to explain here? The feeling of being is a self. Every perception you have is the self. This self that you perceive as being a mother, being a father, being a brother, being victorious, being an engineer, being tall, being thin, being white, being black, being brown, being indigenous. This perception can be worth gold to you. It can be a very strong attachment, but it is a self. And today we are talking about selves. And talking about selves is not about focusing on the flower or the root or the stem or the leaf. Just imagine if you take a very colonial idea of what heaven is, what a good life is, it would be like this. Heaven is a plant that grows taller, and in heaven the leaves don't fall. In heaven the flowers don't wither. In heaven, when fruit bears fruit, it doesn't fall from the tree. And in heaven, when you eat the fruit, you don't go to the bathroom, you don't pee, you don't poop, because in heaven everything is clean. So heaven is a completely out-of-the-box abstraction, and people then think that by being a flower, they can hold on to being a flower and maintain being a flower, because since heaven is this absurdity that will never happen, can I be a flower my whole life? No, you will die in the bloom, you will die from the perception of being a self. And we need to be God. All the selves, God in the sum of all the selves, are you the sum of those selves? Jackson, how complicated this multitude of selves is. How complicated to be the sum of those selves. How am I going to act? How am I going to do it? How am I going to act to change those selves? It's not that sophisticated. If you remember, there's a very good work to get into this idea I have of God, the conductor. He will simply keep time and change the leadership. Now, first violin, now the bum. Now that's it. Now them, now that one. Now he will give inspiration to the orchestra and will play, changing the releases. So that means that a good conductor is one who is there moving around, but doesn't appear much. He only changes the leadership. It's the actors, the selves that you are, these musicians who appear. So there are times when you have a self that awakens with the energy to live, to run, to do. There's a me that's a bit more rebellious, yours. There's a me that's very lively, that's too mischievous. There's a me that's kind of depressive. There's the me that's very cheerful and very humorous. There are several me's. These complete me's are an orchestra. And you, as an invisible conductor, keep switching between your me's without losing yourself in any of them, because what matters is this, being all of them. This harmony of me together. Okay, I'm going to go a little deeper, but delve too much. If I take EEGs, put them on people's heads, and not just one person's, put them in several people, 10, 20, 30 people, put electroencephalography on 30 people, start measuring people's brain waves while they are in a community, or while they are dancing together, while they are doing something with a single purpose. These 30 people begin to have coherence in the electroencephalography, and it becomes a self, which is the sum of all of them. It becomes an agent, it becomes a givasa, it becomes everyone imprinted. With belonging, without feeling ashamed, even if you feel guilty, I will always connect you through the group accepting you as you are. With belonging, many things, many allergies, many traumas, many tensions that you have accumulated in your body leak out through the group, through movement, through dance, through the synchronization of the group, because you release your problems when you enter a group that accepts you as you are. It's difficult, okay? It's difficult because when you enter a group and can be who you are, and you don't enter a group where you have to be what they want you to be, it's a very big difference. When you join a group, you're simply accepted to become a puppet, to become part of the mass, to become a kind of cattle. You have to say what the group says, otherwise you're out. But if the group accepts you with your differences, your quirks, your mannerisms, your flaws and virtues, and you express yourself the way you are at that moment, your expression and your way of being in a group with belonging, the other person looks at you and you correct them, and you help the other person improve their life, and you help yourself because you had movement, you had space to be, bodily movement. That's when the body starts to signal regularity. That's it. These I's added together in the group that I call God, a God with a lowercase g, because it's a sum of I's. And this vision, it's now a vision of cause. How is this gathering of your errors? How does each I that you have control your body? Because each I that enters will control your breathing and heartbeat, okay? Breathing can be high, it can be low, it can be short, it can be long. But each I will find a way. Each I will also control this body position. There's a very good insight here. I'll talk about it in the next live streams, but I'll tell you now. I've always told you that there's something outside your body. Outside, okay? You have the culture of your parents, your mother, school, theater, your city. The mountain and the rivers. And I call everything that is outside of you and that you perceive apos. Apos is there. When I perceive myself, as I perceive myself to be that apos. It involves my memories. It involves everything that is culture and food. When I take this something and begin to integrate it within myself, when it comes inside me, there is a tech aura. Tech aura is what is outside entering and representing itself within my body. If I have restricted movement, in no movement, this after, which is the whole, has any restriction of representation in your body. So what does your body need? It needs freedom of movement. It needs space to express itself, to express this after within you. If there is restriction, you carry it within the after, inside yourself. If you are ashamed, if you... By spending, by frantically seeking money as if it were an addiction, you chase after the competitive process. When you enter the competitive process, you will compete not only with the other people around you, but your inner self will compete with another version of yourself. There's the Christian self, there's the Buddhist self, there comes a time when you no longer believe in the God of Israel. I don't know, the God of Israel is complicated because the God of Israel also doesn't believe in Jesus. Sometimes if you believe in Jesus, you have to consider that those who believe in Jesus are a Christian God here in Brazil. Because if it's a God of Israel, Israel doesn't accept Jesus, doesn't recognize Jesus. So a Christian God is a God who doesn't. Buddhism also has to say that it accepts things this way or that way. So each self that perceives life has conflict with the other self within you. And if you have competition, they start fighting because of battles within your body. If I want harmony from this, I make these selves compose a collective of selves that is you within you. But if we have a group, 10, 20, 30 people, 50 people, I don't know, a rave, a beach, a New Year's celebration, or all these selves compose in harmony with a million people. Look at that, isn't it beautiful? Did you notice? And that's what they add up to. And if I were to place them in EEG at this moment, when there is this synchronicity without competition, there is a coherence of EEG, of brain waves. This is how I've been configured. Today, sometimes in the center of a research lab, you go and put the student or participant who's going to have an electroencephalography, EEG, in a place. You put a small screen, a kitchen, and you stimulate, and measure the EEG. But you don't measure it in the real world, in the real relationship with things. In the real relationship with the thing, the EEG interacts with the other. When the other appears, the EEG changes. When the other does something related to you and enters into a relationship, the EEG changes. So you change with this dynamic. This dynamic is we enter alive with everything, okay? And when these mistakes occur in competition, something happens that also happens in Brazil, femicide. Sometimes we downplay femicides because the perpetrator is male. That's irrelevant. But femicide is a very serious matter. Why is the safe a nemicidio, a play on words combining safe and femicide? The real cause of these tensions, this insecurity and the feeling of abandonment of the real home, the cause is that money is being created outside of human beings. Money is no longer fulfilling its primary function. What was its primary function? Connecting people in buying and selling. But money used to be a function for humans, chasing after money. Today it's entered a process of competition. So we're competing all the time. And sometimes when one of you wants, I don't know, to rest, wants to relax, the other you is just being lazy. You blame yourself. You don't allow yourself to relax. Then you put yourself in what I call zone 3, a zone of more tension, more stress, for a job that doesn't return to its elasticity. Let me tell you about this elasticity, which is important. Inside your body, there are some interesting things, like a rubber band. You pull the rubber band and it springs back. When you're stressed, it becomes tense. It might even get a little more acidic. Then it returns to normal. That acidity, that pH of it. So all organs, they become tense and then return to normal, tense, and then return to normal. If you're constantly tense all the time, then you'll get into something that will become a little more pathological. You might lose elasticity because cell duplication within that totally altered pH can be compromised. And the duplication will be compromised, creating some nodules or some different things that were the defense of that organ, which was affected at that level. Do you understand? So elasticity is this thing where you tense it, you stretch it, and it returns to normal. If you push yourself into zone 3, it's a moment of constant tension without letting the body return to normal. When you tense up to do something, you're tensing. You go to zone 1. You tense your body, lift your body. You start walking, you start doing it. Then when you finish doing it, you relax, and return to zone 2. Zone 2 is something, how can we put it? It almost makes you want to sleep already. Relax, you get really relaxed, or you take a walk outdoors, something like that. Cognition is high. But if you go into zone 1, you're tense. You can fall into zone 3 where you finish doing things and look for something else to do. You're tense, it's a tense self scrolling through your phone's feed, searching for something to do that makes you nervous. I have to do this, I have to do that, finish doing this or buy this or do, and another attention is thrown here again, and now anxiety appears. The anxiety is endless. It changes form, but you remain anxious all the time because it's zone 3, almost an addiction to being anxious. So you have to go back to zone 2. It's crucial that the citizen Drex happens. It's crucial that Brazil starts to reverse the processes. We already have PIX. We're going to have Drex. Drexel is the Brazilian digital money. And we can have, with the retail CBDC, make money originate as credit without default. We can even pay these super rich who earn $1 trillion a year in interest, and don't want to pay the debt. They want to earn interest and pressure our bodies, pressure us to enter into competition with other people who start. Competing against and not composing the state becomes an enormous competition, and this competition involves more rules, more regulations, more punishment, and it's a very high tension. We lose our sense of belonging. With this, Drex, we can implement with retail CBDC. We can generate credit money without debit, pay off this $1 trillion debt in interest, pay off the debt, and it's possible to pay it off. And it starts generating money directly for the citizen. And now the entire financial system continues as before, seeking money from the citizen. The citizen begins to feel a sense of belonging. And this self and this EEG of God begins to be it's about a community with a sense of belonging, a huge Brazil, a huge Latin America, with citizens belonging, being able to be in any way, and being what you want to be, not what you have to be accepted, because you're already accepted as you are. You know, not fitting into the perfect family model, the mommy and daddy, the girl in pink or the boy in blue. It has to be like that. Otherwise, it's not socially accepted. Stress, that's not how it works. And even femicide. Sometimes a woman is having conflict at home, but you don't have financial independence. Man, the cause is financial dependence. If financial dependence disappears, she leaves that house. So we end up working with more norms, more rules, more punishment, but the woman remains financially dependent. How about addressing the root cause? How about we leave these people with this feeling of belonging, these women belonging to a whole, being able to be who they are, how they are, and the way they want to be. And me too, you too, all of us. So this idea that I wanted to leave with you this week, this EEG of God or of selves, this harmony with yourself. Harmony. You have a lot of selves, and if you're a conductor, you can select which self acts, at what moment, which self you discard, even that raw self of yours. But when it came in, you said, whoa, it's not time for you to come in now, Jackson. And that day, I was walking. This afternoon, I was walking. And always a self comes. And always the self that comes is a farce trying to summarize everything you are. But if you're the conductor, you replace that self with that other one. And you compose these hundreds of selves, this legion of selves that you are. And you compose with diplomacy, with affection, with attachment, with belonging. And when other people come with other bodies, you compose it again. It's not a competition, it's a composition, it's a group, it's jivasa, it's we can do it, it's we do it. We will improve this country, but this country has to stop being something for the rich. It has to go back to being a country, a state that looks to the citizen. Who is the owner of the state? So why doesn't the state make money grow in the citizen? Folks, a big hug to you all. Until next Wednesday.